I did my project on Fantastic Mr. Fox. Uh, Also, really fast, if you hear any background noise, I am sorry. I have 3 dogs and they go a little crazy. Anyways, the description of the movie it is after 12 years of bucolic bliss, Mr. Fox, played by George Clooney, breaks a promise to his wife, Meryl Streep, and raids the farms of their human neighbors, Bogus, Bunce, and Bean. Giving in to his animal instincts endangers not only his marriage, but also the lives of his family and their animal friends. When the farmers force Mr. Fox and company deep underground, he must resort to his natural craftiness to rise above the opposition. So I'm just going to show you 2 quick clips. One of them is of Bogus, Bunce, and Bean, which is this one.
All right. Walt Bogus is a chicken farmer, probably the most successful in the world. He weighs the same as a young rhinoceros. He eats 3 chickens every day for breakfast, lunch, supper, and dessert. That's 12 in total per diem. Nate Bunce is a duck and goose farmer. He's approximately the size of a pot-bellied dwarf, and his chin would be underwater in the shallow end of any swimming pool on the planet. His food is homemade donuts with smashed up goose livers injected into them. Frank Bean is a turkey and apple farmer. He invented his own species of each. He lives on a liquid diet of strong alcoholic cider, which he makes from his apples. He's as skinny as a pencil, as smart as a whip, and possibly the scariest man currently living.
Yeah, so that was just a clip of like the 3 enemies of the film, basically. And then here is a clip of them having to dig to get away from them.
Why didn't I think of this sooner?
Think of what?
We've been trapped before.
Yeah, so that was a clip of them digging, which they do a lot more throughout the film. But okay, so the background information is the release date was November 13th, 2009. The production companies included 20th Century Fox Animation, which were uncredited, Indian Paintbrush, Regency Enterprises, American Empirical Pictures. Was directed and produced by Wes Anderson. It was his first family movie, although it still contains many of the trademarks of his live-action movies, which include family dysfunction, colorful palettes, etc. It was adapted from the children's book Fantastic Mr. Fox, written by Roald Dahl, and you can see that book off to the side. There were a couple different covers for that. He was a British novelist, short story writer, poet, screenwriter, and wartime fighter of Norwegian descent. His books have sold more than 250 million copies worldwide. The original story was written at a dark time in Roald Dahl's life. He had already lost one of his 5 children to measles and witnessed another one suffer from water on the brain as a result of a car accident. It was only natural that he would be spurred on to write a tale portraying the father as a protector of the family. And Fantastic Mr. Fox is a clay animation or claymation movie that uses clay figurines and stop-motion photography to produce lifelike movements. So, the making of the film. Production started in 2007. It took about 7 months to perfect Fantastic Mr. Fox. And Wes Anderson actually directed most of the movie from his apartment in Paris, and he did that through email. To create Fantastic Mr. Fox, the production crew had to craft and capture about 125,000 individual pictures and then string them together to create the moving film. Every second in the film is made up from about 24 individual shots. However, some of it was shot with 12 frames per second, so the audience would notice the medium of stop motion. And through my research, I saw this a couple of different times that Wes Anderson like wanted it to feel like a stop motion picture because that's what he liked as a kid. So he just like wanted the audience to notice that. And it was shot digitally using a Nikon D3, which offers a significantly higher resolution than even that of full high definition. And then that picture to the right is Wes Anderson on the set, and he's moving the characters around. The color scheme of this movie is primarily yellows, oranges, and browns, with virtually no green and blue. However, Christopherson, which was the character, his wardrobe was blue, and which was intentional as it emphasized his being a visiting outsider. And then you can see like the yellow, oranges, and browns in those two pictures. The look of the movie was inspired by Great Missenden, a village in Buckinghamshire, England, where Roald Dahl lived and worked. The tree where the Fox's family lived is based on a prominent beech tree on Dahl's property, and Mr. Fox's study recreates in minute detail the interior of the famous garden hut in which Dahl did most of his writing. And Mr. Fox's wardrobe was actually based on Wes Anderson's own brown corduroy suits, and they even took fabric from Anderson's suits, and you can see Mr. Fox wearing that in that top right picture. And the human character's hair was actual human hair collected from studio employees at McKinnon and Saunders, the company that manufactured the puppets for this movie. I thought that was a cool fact and wanted to add that in there. Then I'm just going to show you a quick video of like a behind the scenes recording.
Using all of the characters. We started with real animals and a couple of sketch artists and just did a lot of drawings and presented those to Wes. He started narrowing down the search for these characters. I think we're always keeping in mind the actors who are playing the characters. We did a lot of maquettes, a lot of sketches, and finally brought them down to the essence of the characters that you see in the finished film.
After quite an extensive amount of character drawing, we'll start to block them out in plasticine. So we'll actually then turn them into a three-dimensional sculpt. As we sort of get to a good shape with things, we'll start to add more detail to it, more textures, until it's a fully finished sculpt with all of the details, basically all the character in. Once we've got it into a nice shape, we'll remove all the sort of sculpted clothes to get the bare parts of the puppet. And then we'll do a mould for it that we can then subsequently get the finished armature out and the finished silicone or foam latex or combination puppet.
Yeah, and I don't know if you caught that in the beginning. It was like really quick, but they actually said that they took inspiration from actual animals before creating everything. Like they saw how they moved and everything, how they looked. Yeah. So altogether, 535 puppets were made for this movie. Mr. Fox had 17 different styles alone, and each of Mr. Fox's styles had to be done in 6 different sizes, and that was for like perspective view and everything. He has 102 puppets alone, which I thought was crazy, and then Ashes, which is one of the Mr. Fox's son in the movie, played by Jason Schwartzman. You could see Ash's ear twitching, which was based on a gesture most foxes and domestic canines do to show aggression and or displeasure. The noticeable pauses and slower action in the stop motion is an homage to Rankin Bass stop motion holiday specials of the 1960s and 70s, which I kind of mentioned this before, but Anderson was very much inspired by that, and I added a little picture off to the side just in case you didn't know what it was. But yeah, those are all like the holiday movies, stop motion. And then the cinematography has a lot of homages to classic 2D traditional animation, such as the flat dimensional perspective and the panning down shots, such as those in the Fox's tree and sewer. And I'm going to show you another behind the scenes clip. you get an idea of what I was talking about.
We have such a great group of people. Some of the best people doing animation in the world are here with us in London working on the movie. We have eyes for a number of the different characters. This is Mr. Fox. Mr. Fox is green, Mrs. Fox is this violet, and that's a Christopherson eye?
Yeah, in a different scale. Christopherson with his new fur there, ready to go on.
This is, you can see inside the head, these paddles allow you to move the eyebrows and cheekbones. This can move separately, and you can get different expressions out of it. So this is a full-scale Mr. Fox and Mrs. Fox Badger. Then here's our half-scale, and then sometimes we'll use these micro-scale. But there's also this scale, which is the, we say, mini-micro, for a very, very wide shot.
Look at that thing. It's got all these little pieces, these little joints, really, aren't they? Then you put silicone, this is what you pour a body for it. Take that, little fox. The casket, Amontillado. There you go. Micro Mr. Fox. Well, let's talk about this badger a little. He's heavy. His eyes are so close together, they've got to really work to get around the side, to see around his nose. That's all. Oh, wow, look at that. And his ears wiggle.
Yeah, I really like that clip. Like, I like the eyes, and I really like seeing how they can actually make them move, and looking at all the different sizes of each clay thing. Okay, so the voices were recorded at a farmhouse in Connecticut, which was owned by a friend of writer, producer, and director Wes Anderson. But William Dafoe's dialogue, however, was recorded later on in Paris. And yeah, so Wes Anderson chose to have all the actors and actresses record their dialogue either outside of the studio or on location to increase the naturalness. But I think it was definitely more outside and like running and walking around as they're doing the voices. Anyways, they said we went out in a forest, went in an attic, went in a stable, we went underground for some things. There was a great spontaneity in the recordings because of that. I have a clip of them doing one of the scenes like outside.
Mr. Fox, take one, scene one. A few beagles as we discussed, but we're ready for that. You feel that? The wind's in our faces.
Yeah. Back in the old days, didn't they used to do a thing where if somebody saw a wolf, we would all get together?
What wolf? Nothing? Never mind.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting the way they like actually ran around and like, I don't know, I thought that was cool. And once I get to this, you can actually see them. There's a lot of scenes of them on a motorcycle throughout the film, and they actually did those like on that bike thing they're on in that picture right there. I thought that was really fascinating and a really good way to make it like authentic and more realistic with the noises and sounds. And some fun facts I found through my research was throughout this movie, the word cuss is used in place of actual cussing, which, when asked about the origin in a radio interview on Fresh Air with Terry Gross, Wes Anderson said, "I don't even remember. I think it was just to use the concept of profanity as a replacement for profanity itself. It turned out to be very versatile. In keeping with this theme, one of the buildings seen in the movie bears cuss written as a spray painted graffiti. And that little picture shows an example of them using cuss instead of swearing. Also, the train that can be seen passing in the background sometimes is the same one in Ash's bedroom. its scale was changed using the film technique of forced perspective. CGI was only used in one scene, and it was the flooding of the Flint mine, which I will show you right now.
Look at each other. Here we are. Wow. Now, I've already had too much to drink, and I'm feeling sentimental, but I'm going to say something anyway, which nobody wants to admit, but I think is probably true. We beat them. We beat those farmers, and now we're triumphantly eating their roasted chicken, their sizzling duck, their succulent turkey, their foie gras. Where'd the boys go? Where? Ash? Boys? Christopherson.
Oh my gosh, that was crazy. I can't believe what just happened here. Come on, let's get out of here. Let's go. Where are we? Christopherson?
What am I hearing again, baby? What's happening? Am I still paranoid? Cider.
So the part where they're going through, and sorry for my dogs barking if you can hear that. The part where they're going through the tunnels and the pipes, that's the CGI. And then for the moving water, they actually used saran wrap, which I thought was really cool, and I will show you a clip of that as well in a second. And they also used cotton balls for smoke. Yeah, they got really creative with using different things to make it look realistic. As you'll see in this, it does look pretty cool.
Badger's right. These farmers aren't going to quit until they catch me. I shouldn't have lied to your face. I shouldn't have fallen off the wagon and started secretly stealing chickens on the sly. I shouldn't have pushed these farmers so far and tried to embarrass them and cuss with their heads. I enjoyed it, but I shouldn't have done it. And now there's only one way out. Maybe if I hand myself over and let them kill me, stuff me, and hang me over their mantelpiece.
You'll do no such thing.
Darling, maybe they'll let everyone else live.
Yeah, so that was just how they made the water look real with the saran wrap. Okay. Oops. So for the cost and ratings, although it was widely well received, this movie did not do well enough to recoup production cost. And as a result, no other Roald Dahl adaptations were made until the BFG in 2016, which also failed to break even. So it did get really good ratings. It had 85% Rotten Tomatoes ratings from fans and 92% from critics. And the budget for the film was $40 million, but they only made a whopping $46.5 million. Which definitely was not well enough. Anyways. Yeah, so just some final thoughts. The film delves into what it means to be a father and husband and the relationships of the family. Mr. Fox breaks that promise he made to his wife, and in doing so turns everyone's lives upside down. But it also forces him to look at himself, to acknowledge who he is, and I thought that was like the biggest takeaway from the movie. Anyways, I'm going to show you one final clip that I just really liked from the movie, and I think it's cool. So, and that will be the final thing. Okay.
May I cut in?
yeah, I just really like that clip. Anyways, thanks for listening and watching. Bye.